I live here, but I haven't been up here for 3-4 years because I've got ME. A friend brought me up in a truck, and I'm making a film about awareness of this illness. So I live in a very small area, and you can see the whole area from up here, so I'm going to film it. This is my bubble. Beautiful up here, isn't it? This is my comfort zone at the moment, Colin. I live between here, Inverlochy and the Black Parks. Right. Because I had a car crash, 7.5 years ago. Was fighting it quite well, you know what I mean? I was going to the gym, I was walking, I was cycling, I was doing everything. I was in a lot of pain. Then 2.5 years after the accident, I started coming down with infections, and then I started losing strength and stamina. Right. I would be doing something and the strength would just drain out of me. Yeah, out the muscles. And the pain just was everywhere. So anyway, I discovered that my spinal and pelvic injuries, this is 4 years after the accident, I discovered that the injuries hadn't been diagnosed properly. This is the end of my comfort zone. The high street's an expedition for me because it involves going through the underpass. And that if they had been diagnosed, I would never have tried to ski. And this is why I've had to ask Colin for a lift, because this is me totally out of my comfort zone. Colin's van's out of its comfort zone. You know, I mean, I wouldn't have been going to the gym and building up muscle on top of a twisted pelvis. So I started getting proper physiotherapy. I was getting myself referred to Glasgow. I was at John Donn, the osteopath. He did so much. And then I get this brilliant physiotherapist who started getting my spine and pelvis straightened up. But I still kept having these nosedives of going to Glasgow, and the train became too much for me. It was taking me 3, 4, 5 days a week to recover from a trip to Glasgow. Just a day trip down to physiotherapy. I went to London about 3 years ago. Stayed with a mate. I had all these plans to go and do things in London. I wasn't outside of Bethnal Green. Fortunately, I've got a lot of mates down there, and I enjoyed myself, but I never saw the London Eye. I never saw anything. I get transported up here in the back of a van. I'm not up to this. I live down in there. That's my route to the shops. Down the tree-lined street, down to the river, across the footbridge, and then down past the shinty pitch, or the river, the loch side. That's the first supermarket. Second supermarket, they're all in my bubble, nice and flat. That's gone down into the high street. That's getting out my bubble because there's an underpass there, or an incline, and some days I just can't make it. It was really great getting a lift up the hill off of Colin. I was going to use the local disability services, but I met Colin in the supermarket. He knew me when I was throwing around 49 kilo gas bottles and 50 kilo sacks of coal with the ease with which I now lift a bunch of bananas. The decline in my health over the last 4 or 5 years has followed a similar trajectory to the path down the hill. There was a long, slow descent, and then it nosedived. I knew I was going down, but I didn't know how far. I never recovered from the trip to London, and my health nosedived again when I moved house. It's the easiest move I've ever made. 2 doors along the street, I did nothing. My son and his friends and my neighbours moved everything. I was ill for months afterwards, and I realised then that my health was not going to return to normal. For the past 3 years, my bubble has extended half a mile to the north, half a mile to the south. It's confined by the railway and the river to the east and west, and it's about a few hundred yards wide. I don't walk much because it's slow, painful and impractical. I use my bicycle the way other people would use a wheelchair. I use it to transport myself to the supermarket and transport my groceries home. Without it, I would not be able to live independently. I can't carry a bag of shopping home. I've been practically housebound for the last 3 winters because I've developed an extreme intolerance to cold. The day I got up to the viewpoint was one of the few days last year that I wore a short-sleeved shirt. Even on a sunny day, a north wind requires that I wear a jacket. From October to April, I've only made essential cycle trips to the supermarket. I have to wait till there's a lull in the wind because I can't cycle into a headwind. I wear 5 or 6 layers of clothing and I have to strip off my fleece and my outer jacket in the supermarket if I'm in for more than 5 minutes or I'll freeze when I go outside. I'm rarely out for more than an hour. I'm lucky because my bubble's a rich and varied environment and it's only between 10 and 25 feet above sea level, so I don't have to negotiate hills. Being disabled and looking healthy is extremely difficult to deal with. I'm lucky that many of the people who live around here have special needs. There's a lot of empathy and understanding. I've cut off contact with lots of people who have been unable to understand how limited I've become. Questions like, well, what's wrong with you this time, become really disheartening. Even worse is that recurring response, aye, right. You're at it. This is frequently the response of health professionals. Trying to explain my situation to people who haven't seen me for a while is extremely frustrating. People who see me on a regular basis know that I'm not at it and that I don't function properly. My son lived with me for the ages of 15 to 19 and was very supportive. Sometimes I'd announce that I was going to do something and he'd say, look Dad, every time you say that, you end up doing too much and you end up knackered for days. Take it easy. I've learned to heed his advice. I've learned to pace myself. I've realised that I have to accept my limitations and that I can't fight my way back to fitness. I joined my local support group. It was a great relief to find that people with ME are motivated and desperate to recover. They are not the lazy hypochondriacs that they are often portrayed as. It wasn't called yuppie flu for nothing. I've sought advice from the international groups of patients and experts. I'm trying to find ways to boost my immune system by using supplements and altering my diet. The key to recovery seems to be in the gut. I really only accepted that I had ME when my health took that final nosedive a few years ago. Before that, I was treating myself as someone recovering from a traffic accident. I think valuable information about this illness has been blocked by the medical insurance industry, who stand to lose a lot of money if this illness is recognised as an autoimmune disease rather than a psychiatric condition. Pharmaceutical industry is also making a fortune by dumping useless drugs on people who are desperate enough to take anything. Medical professionals don't seem to have the inclination, the information or the time to talk to patients, and it seems to be cheaper to dump people with antidepressants and send them on their way. Patients are fighting back and funding research. There is conclusive evidence arising that this is in fact an autoimmune disease. We're just waiting for the health professionals to catch on and catch up. It took me a couple of weeks to shoot the footage for this film, during the course of which my house became more and more chaotic. I was unable to clean up or wash dishes.